The following program is brought to you by PodcastOne Sportsnet.
All right, listen to the Steve Austin Show. Pay attention. I want to keep this podcast free to download with minimal ads, and to do so, I would appreciate your participation in a Podcast One survey. Either go to podcastone.com/mysurvey or visit Podcast One, that's podcastone.com, and click on the survey banner. Thank you. This episode of the Steve Austin Show is sponsored in part by DDP Yoga. Hey, man, working all those professional wrestling matches all over the world for all those years, it ain't no surprise. My body's been beat to shreds. It's taken a share of bumps and bruises. My buddy Diamond Dallas Page knows all about the wear and tear the ring takes on your body, and his DDP Yoga Fitness System was specifically designed to burn fat, reduce pain, and heal from injuries. And just check out this list of folks he's helped out with this program. Scott Hall, Goldust, Chris Jericho, Edge, Jake Roberts, AJ Styles, Drew McIntyre, NXT's Bobby Fish, Tony Schiavone, and even Stone Cold Steve Austin, yours truly. Now listen to me. Dallas is so positive that you will absolutely love the DDPY program and using the DDPY app that he's doing something he ain't never done before. He's going to give you 7 days free to try it out. That's a week to try the program, explore the app, and own your life, and it's completely free. And you need a couple of days to explore the app because that's how many features, and that's how many workouts, that's how many tips, and that's how much motivation that's in the app. So check it out. Drive it for a while. Make DDP your program. Now listen to me. DDP Yoga can work for all ages, weights, and fitness levels. It's a kick-ass cardio workout that will dramatically increase your flexibility and strengthen your core like never before, all with minimal joint impact. That's key, people. And just for listeners of the Steve Austin Show, you can save 20% off an annual membership of the DDP Yoga Now app, which now features DDPY Rebuild. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to get started. Also, Dallas will be at the Corpus Christi Comic-Con, June 23rd and 24th, signing autographs and taking pictures. And check this out. The 8th annual DDP Yoga Retreat coming at you, July 7th through July 12th at the El Dorado Resort in the Riviera Maya, Mexico. That's 6 days and 6 nights in Cancun to enjoy DDP Yoga with an amazing backdrop in paradise. Spaces are filling up. Go to ddpretreat.com for pricing and all the details.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm sitting over here at 317 Gimmick Street at my podcast table. Got my laptop computer in front of me. Got my iPhone on silence. I got my computer on silence. There's no way any extracurricular noise from outside is going to come in and interrupt this podcast and then make me owe everybody who's listening a bunch of damn beer. So now that I got everything on silence, I will continue to run my mouth. God damn, man. I tell you what, a couple of days ago, Craig Gass, comedian, guy does impressions, voice actor, came by the crib and we sit there and chopped it up for a couple of hours. Real interesting dude. Love the Mitch Hedberg stories. Love the George Carlin stories. Interesting guy. He's going to be part 2 on the podcast here today. And I think you'll enjoy the rest of this conversation. But yesterday, Chavo Guerrero Jr. came by and we sit there and shot the breeze for a couple of hours. Chavo was the fight coordinator for the Glow series, which is airing on Netflix. And I didn't know that he was a producer on Lucha Underground. I really enjoy that show on the El Rey Network. So, man, he came down. It turns out Chavo only lives about 55, 60 miles from me. I didn't know he was my next-door neighbor. So hopefully he'll come back down and we'll shoot the breeze again. It turns out we were both in the wrestling business for a long time. Of course, everybody knows about the world-famous Guerrero family. 3 generations, I guess, of, or more than that, especially from Chavo with both sides of his family. But so much history in that family. And out of all the years I've known Chavo, because mainly, when we came into a territory together, normally I was out the door to the next show. And then when he came to WWF back in the day, man, I was on we did the invasion angle. And I remember doing some business with him in the locker room. But, man, we just never really hung out too much. And it turns out, man, Chavo's into RVing. He's into drinking beer. He likes to shoot his guns. He likes to ride motorcycles. He likes to go jet skiing and out there on his boat in the lakes out here in California, in the areas that he travels in. He spent some time over in Utah. But hell, man, I didn't know that I had so much in common with this guy. So we hit it off right off the bat. And like I said, I've known the guy for years. And he walked in the door and I said, hey, man, we shook hands, gave each other a hug and all that stuff. And he said, hey, man, he goes, you got any of your beer handy? Well, man, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, yeah, man, it's 3 in the afternoon. I said, I normally don't drink this early, but if you want to drink a beer, mister, I will drink some beer with you. So we went next door, popped a couple of Broken Skull IPAs out of my refrigerator over at 316 Gimmick Street, brought them back over here, and had about 3 beers. That's about, almost 2.5 beers each by the time you split up those 22-ounce bombers, and that's 6.7% alcohol, and man, had a pretty good little buzz going on. A very interesting conversation with Chavo. I know he's been on the Chris Jericho podcast many, many times, Talk is Jericho on the Westwood One network. But we kind of covered a lot of different material than they covered on that one and kind of kept it light. But the thing that's really interesting about Chavo is his depth of knowledge about the product of professional wrestling, the business of professional wrestling, and it's to be expected because he's been in it so long, but just his knowledge of television and how to shoot professional wrestling. So it's an interesting story. We're going to get to the glow stuff in the second part of our conversation. In the first part, we're just chopping it up and shoot the breeze about the business. But I really, really enjoyed talking to Chavo and just great back and forth banter, and everything was really, really loose. So I think I can enjoy that conversation. I've got to run some errands today. Some errands we're trying to get ready to get out of here and make a trip up to the BSR 2.0 over there in Nevada. So I'm going to get all my errands done. Got some good podcasts coming up for you. I think you're going to dig them. Got a special guest coming up in about a week and a half. I'll drop that on you a little bit closer to the date, but I think you'll really dig this because it'll be some information you'll want to hear. And anyway, before we get to Craig Gass, part 2 of my conversation with him, let me remind you that it's a special time of year. It's this time of year brings us 2 things: graduations and Father's Day, and the gifts that go along with them. Well, before you buy Dad another tie or that grad a balloon that will probably float away, ask yourself this: does my dad or the grad like wings or sports, or better yet, both? If the answer is yes, then get them a Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. Right now, if you purchase $30 worth or more in store or online, they'll give you a $5 bonus to keep for yourself. That's a gift that gives back. You just might be the most generous SOB on the planet. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey humans, David Smalley here from the Dogma Debate Podcast right here on Podcast One, where we talk about all the things you're not supposed to discuss at work: religion, politics, abortion, racism, slavery, and that's only when we open the Bible. We discuss Islam, Islamophobia. What does that even mean? We chat with vegans, animal rights activists, and even visit factory farms to see it for ourselves. I invite people from multiple backgrounds to convert me into their worldview. But as long as they're okay with being respectfully challenged, you better bring your evidence. And I never lose sight of how both the left and the right are seeming to lose their minds. So basically, we're solving all the world's problems right here on Dogma Debate. And you've been missing it. Download Dogma Debate on iTunes, Stitcher, or PodcastOne.com.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
I'm a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. I was in all the hair bands, all that, but SRV is my guy as far as just guitar players and blues.
Did you see him all the time in Texas?
Oh, no, man. I was going to go see him it was 89 or 90. 90 is when he died in a helicopter crash out of Milwaukee. And I was going to go see, it was him, Clapton, I guess Fabulous Thunderbirds, or Robert Cray. They were all touring together, and I wanted to go see that concert series, and I passed. And sure enough, he gets on that helicopter, and everything changed. But, he was really bad off from a real young age, and he just turned into this prodigy. You saw all the stuff. And anyway, so when he got cleaned up, it took him a while to, get his shit back together. So did the chemicals affect any of your writing ability, how you approach your comedy?
I was afraid at first, and I remember early on I had this night where the crowd was really rowdy crowd, and I just couldn't get them to listen, and I just lost that night. I got off stage, and a very close friend of mine was with me, and I looked at him and said, I hate to say this, but if I was drinking tonight, that would have been a much better show. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, just when I'm drinking, it's like a rock concert. I'm just more in control. And he said, dude, I got to be honest with you. You are awful on stage when you drink. And I went, what are you talking about, man? And he said, you ramble a lot. You never get to the point. You kind of, I go, when I drink, I'm like a rock star. And he goes, you think you're a rock star. Right. It's clear looking at you that you think it's going well, but I'm telling you, I've seen you do it 100 times. It's uncomfortable. And I went, and thank God I had a friend who was enough of a friend to say that to me. And I've appreciated that ever since. But it took me a while, and I have a lot of musician friends who say the same thing, like when they first start to get clean, like, oh my God, how am I ever going to create? Being drunk or a little bit high has always been something that's made me creative, but I am way more creative now than I was. But there was a period there for, at least a year or two where it's like trying to figure out how to make a transition. And for a long time, I was still doing material about getting hammered. But I noticed that nobody was sending me shots to the stage anymore. I was clearly putting off some kind of vibe that wasn't, this guy is one of us. Although a few weeks ago, I was in Las Vegas, and a guy on the boulevard, on the Strip, walked past me and said, cocaine. And I was like, oh, man. Still got it. Like I was kind of happy that, all right, somebody thinks I still look hip, Guy just offered me cocaine over there, But yeah, you get it all back and then some. And but you live a certain way for so long, you just think, oh man, I'll never, I feel there was one guy who I started out at the same time getting clean with. He was a comedian, and then every year when I get another year of being clean, there's a group of people that I just call and say thank you. There's one guy who told me I was an asshole, and I said thank you so much for telling me I was an asshole. It really was something I needed to hear. I check in with people who answered my questions early on, and one is this guy that I started out getting clean with, and he went back and relapsed, and he I don't know how he does it, but he relapses all the time. And I left him a message and said, hey, I just wanted to say thank you for, it helped me get to where I'm at. And at that time, I think it was like 8 or 9 years clean. I'm 13 years clean now. Right. And that guy called me back, and I kept his message. I listened to it from time to time. It's heartbreaking. He said, I'm happy for you, but I feel like I'm still in prison, and I'm watching it, my buddy out there free. So it's not, it's kind of bittersweet to hear it. I mean, I'm glad that you're happy, and it's tough that people can't, you know what you got to do, and they just won't do it. I got a comedian friend of mine who is a famous drug addict that all of us who are friends with him at this point are just waiting for him to die because he just won't get it together. And it's just we all have been saying, at this point, it's just a waiting game. We're just waiting for it. Will we find out before TMZ does, or are we going to find out about it on TMZ? And it's sad,
Hey, man, what was the deal? You had to have been a big Kiss fan.
Huge Kiss fan.
The same here. They were my favorite band growing up. And you started doing impersonations of Gene Simmons.
And Paul Stanley.
And Paul Stanley. You got Paul Stanley as well?
Yeah, I did Paul Stanley. I started doing a Paul Stanley impression on the Dee Snider radio show before I got on to Howard Stern. I'm a huge rock music fan. And the thing I loved about Kiss is they had confidence in spades. There's two different Paul Stanleys. There's Paul Stanley offstage, which is quiet. I remember seeing a press conference where somebody, it was a Japanese Kiss tour, was about to kick off, and they're in front of the Japanese press, and somebody said, why is Kiss so amazing? And Paul Stanley said, a lot of people are envious of Kiss. I'm even envious of Kiss. And I was like, what the hell, man? How do you get to be that confident? And then there's Paul Stanley on stage, where I heard him in Las Vegas say, all right, people, now listen. I know that this town, Las Vegas, is known for its buffets. And I can tell you right now that after this show, I'm going to want to eat some people in the front row. And I was like, what the hell? What is that like? And then I mentioned it to 3 different guys on the tour when I saw them again in New York City. I said, did you hear him say that he was going to eat the front row in Las Vegas? And 3 different guys said, did you hear what he said in Oklahoma? And I said, no, what did he say in Oklahoma? Yeah, and 3 different guys said in Oklahoma, he said, all right, people, now listen. I know this state is known for its Angus beef. And I can tell you right now, after this show, I'm going to want to sink my teeth into some meat. And the whole crowd went, what? And then he came back to the mic and said, now, wait a minute, hold on. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a thigh or a rump roast. And the crowd went, what? And then I guess all the guitar techs were standing behind the stage going, what the hell's he doing up there, man? He's not even making any, I love hearing stories about that. But Gene Simmons was a guy who I did an impression of on the Howard Stern show. Have you ever had any interactions with Gene?
Yeah, I went to his house one time. I was thinking about a few projects, and a friend of Gene's, a mutual friend, this guy used to be a photographer. I guess he photoed a couple of their albums. So we go over to
Who was the
Gene.
photographer?
Jesus, Barry. I can't remember Barry's last name.
Okay.
Anyway, but we're in Beverly Hills, big
Okay.
ass 10,000 square foot mansion.
I went there.
You been there?
Yeah, I got a great story
it's
about
awesome,
it.
man. Because you go into Gene's office, and it's like, dude, Kiss was the kings of merchandise, right?
Absolutely, and he has everything.
I know it, and it's all put together so spectacularly. And
He actually has a room dedicated to every piece of merch they've ever made.
And at the end of the room, that's where his desk is,
Yep.
by the window, and all that stuff is there. He even has the Kiss coffin that you talk about.
Yep.
But anyway, so I went over there and met him and talked to him. And, I as a huge Kiss fan, I got to give Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley so much credit for staying straight through all that stuff from back when they started, in 74?
Yeah.
And then Peter, Chris, and Ace are just they're out there, right?
Yeah, Ace especially.
And but those 2 guys maintained, and Gene's teetotal. I mean, nothing.
Yep.
I don't think Paul Stanley either.
Yeah.
So I give those guys a lot of respect. So anyway, it was cool going there. You hear all the Gene Simmons stories, but I think the guy's wonderful. He's got a great head on his shoulders. Maybe he's an egomaniac or whatever, but I think the guy is super smart and a huge fan.
You know what's funny is the one thing about them when I was still partying is I used to think, oh man, those guys are such squares for not partying and being so anti-drugs and alcohol. But now that I've been through the hell that I went through and I'm on the other side, I actually really respect them living the life that they did. And also, I've heard Gene give out advice sometimes, and I thought, oh man, because I'm just a kid. And I'm thinking that's not rock and roll. I remember Gene saying, if you live in America, if you're lucky enough to grow up in America, you should work every day, 7 days a week until you're 50 years old and then just have a great life. And looking back, I really think that's great advice. I think it's in this country, you don't realize how lucky you have it to live in the United States. But when I got to tell you, there's a story that I heard when you talk about that room. You got to see that room, and I got to see that room once too. A guy who has a funny story about that room is Sebastian Bach, the singer of Skid Row, who said he walked into that room and he goes, I asked him, has Gene ever been cheap to you? And he goes, dude, that guy, I went to his fucking house and he has like a Kiss museum in the house and he had a bag with 100 Kiss cell phone covers. I said, dude, what the hell is that? And he said, that's our new promotion for Kissmas. It's our new Kiss cell phone covers. Can I have one of those? I wish I could, but if you go to kissonline.com, he wouldn't give him one. He had a bag of 100 pieces of plastic, wouldn't give him one. Sebastian tried to take money out. Dude, here's $20. I'll buy one right now. Sebastian, put your money away. I can't take your money. Go to kissonline.com. You can buy as many as you want. Yeah. When I went to his house, I said, we filmed an episode of Gene Simmons' Family Jewels at his house, and he was a little uncomfortable. He seemed to think that I was going to be jerky to him for some reason. And he kept asking me, so what are you going to do? Are you going to make fun of me today? Is that what you're going to do? And I said, no, I just want to hang out with you, man. Hey, can I just tell you what my ideal day would be? Honest to God. If I could just hang out with you and just tell you some of my favorite jokes, and then if you have any favorite jokes you'd like to tell me, that would be a perfect day, man. And he went, You want to hear a joke? And I went, sure. He told me a joke that he told a 5-minute version of. I can break it down to 3 sentences. A guy dies, he goes to heaven, and he's getting a tour of heaven from St. Peter. And St. Peter opens up a door, And sitting on a giant throne is Gene Simmons. And the guy says to St. Peter, "Oh my God, what is Gene Simmons doing here?" And St. Peter says, "That's not Gene Simmons. That's God. He just thinks he's Gene Simmons." And I went, holy shit, I got to get out of this house. This is awful. I got to run. I got to get as far. I'm going to get struck down by lightning in this house if I don't leave right now. And, yeah, but he's...
So what'd you do? Do you kick out the courtesy laugh or what?
I remember being scared, and I'm also intimidated because he's Gene Simmons. There's some people that I'm around where I just go, man, I can't. And George Carlin was the same way. I would talk to George. It would take a lot of courage just to dial his number. Aren't there people on your phone that you just won't call because you're like, oh man, what am I going to say to that guy? I mean, you got famous people on your phone that you go like, man, I'd like to call him. I just don't want to bother him. Do you ever get like that?
I don't want to bother anybody, though.
And that's, and by the way, it's also the reason why I don't pick up my phone anymore if it's a restricted number. Because if it's a restricted number, it's either a famous guy that's going to like make me feel weird or it's an old Coke dealer. But I remember one time getting a phone call. I was in a Long John Silver's. And the phone's ringing, it's restricted, and I picked up, and I go, hello? And it's Alec Baldwin, and he goes, Craig, it's Alec Baldwin. I'm here with Andy Garcia. Can you do some more of your Al Pacino impression? And I go, yeah, look, get some hush puppies. Yeah, what do you want? And it just throws me off, and it makes my stomach turn, and I feel uncomfortable doing that. But I get intimidated easily by people. By the way, Alec Baldwin does amazing impressions. We did a TV show together called Las Vegas, and every day he'd come up and say, can I hear some more of your Al Pacino? I'd love to hear some more of your Al Pacino. And I go, yeah, but real quick, this is my friend Steve. He's visiting from Texas. Will you do your Tony Bennett for Steve? And he does this Tony Bennett that you go, what the hell does Tony Bennett sound like? He'll get an empty martini glass and go, yeah, I'll tell you what. I used to date Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was a real foxy lady. I once made love to Marilyn for up to 12 hours. Until the paramedics came along and said, Tony, she's gone. It was terrible. The material was really, really dark. And then Alec Baldwin actually told me a story about how he almost got in a fist fight with Al Pacino, which is riveting. He said that he was in a play about Al Pacino's life, that the problem was the play was written by a former best friend of Al Pacino's. And that former best friend revealed a lot of personal information about Al's life that he did not want people to find out about. And Baldwin says that everywhere he goes, he starts hearing from people who say, hey, I don't know what the deal is. I'm just passing along the message. I just saw Al Pacino, and he said the next time he sees you, he's going to beat your ass. I don't know what that's about. I'm just passing along the message, but he is really angry with you. So he tells me that Baldwin says, one day, I'm in my apartment building. The elevator door opens up. Who's in the elevator? It's Al Pacino, Beverly D'Angelo, and a real estate broker. They're looking for an apartment in my building. He said as soon as the elevator door opens up, Al Pacino looks at him and goes, oh boy, here we go. Here we go. And he said, Beverly D'Angelo, clueless, gets off the elevator and goes, Alec, look who it is. It's Alec. We were just talking about you. You're so political. You should be a president or something. Weren't we saying that, Al? And he said the whole time, Pacino's looking, going,
who, him? Yeah. This guy just does anything he wants. Don't you, Alec? You do anything you want.
Beverly D'Angelo walking away with a real estate broker, still clueless, and Al Pacino eyeballs him as he walks by him. And Baldwin goes, Al, can I talk to you for 1 second? He goes, what? You got something you want to say to me? What do you got to say to me, Alec? And he goes, listen, I know you know about the play. And he goes, play? You were in a play. Tell me about your fruity little play. I'm dying to hear about your little play, Alec. And he goes, listen, I know you know about the play. I just want to tell you a few things. Number one, I wasn't going to do the play in your backyard. I was only going to do it in New York City. Number two, I only agreed to do the show for 3 weeks. And number three, and this is the truth, I've never had more fun in my life than I did playing you. And that's the truth. And he said, Pacino looked at him and went,
Alec, how in the world can you have fun being me? Because I'm miserable. I am miserable.
And they talked it out and they worked through it. But that line, I am a miserable person, had me on the edge of my seat. To think of these two icons almost getting in a fist fight. And Alec working his way through it without having to come to blows with Al Pacino is one of the craziest stories ever.
So what are you out here in L.A. doing? Because you're going to headline some stuff in Vegas coming up.
I'm headlining Vegas for the first time at the MGM. I'm doing Brad Garrett's Comedy Club in the MGM. That's July 2nd through the 8th. I've been doing a lot of voiceover work here in L.A. I started doing some Family Guy stuff, American Dad. There's some other big animated feature stuff that's coming my way as opportunities to audition for. And but I'm on the road. And all my info is at getgas.com. It's getgas with 2 S's.com. And there's the links to all the social media stuff. You can see all the weird pictures on my Facebook page or on my Twitter by just clicking on going to getgas.com.
Dude, the voiceover stuff is the ticket.
Yeah, it's an easy... I would imagine, like, have you done a lot of voiceover stuff? Because you have that voice.
Dude, I've had a million people tell me, oh, you ought to do more voiceover stuff, or you'd be great for this commercial, that commercial. Nah, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm right here.
Do you have a voiceover agent sending you out for stuff?
No, I read a couple of things, but, dude, I have a very distinct voice.
Yeah.
You love it or you hate it. And as far as a national brand or whatever, it might not be everybody's cup of tea. It's a very recognizable voice, but it's a regional sounding voice. I'm from Texas. So as unique as it is, it hadn't got me a whole lot of voiceover work. But when I go, there's a website of this guy who's in L.A. Man, he can do just any kind of accent you want, deep baritone, this, that, whatever. Just amazing, the range that he's got. Yeah. It's like when you're watching a lot of the award shows and, hear that voice comes in and, he'll read the credits or whatever. He's that guy. He's that high end. So my chump ass, I got a good voice for being me, but I'm not in demand as far as doing voice work stuff. But, from Sam Elliott doing the Dodge commercials, the Coors Banquet beer, I mean, that's a sweet gig.
I really think you should push more for it and just push it and have somebody push for you because you have that distinctive voice. And I wanted to ask you at the beginning of our conversation when you said there are people who do impressions of you. You ever had that moment where someone does an impression of you and it makes everyone laugh and you don't know why people are laughing? Do you or do you feel like somebody actually sounds like you when they do an impression of you, or to you does it sound like
no? Some guys are pretty good.
Okay,
but I'll be like, man, that really ain't that funny.
Yeah.
It's like, speaking of funny, like, how are you as far as, like, if I'm watching wrestling, like tonight I'll be watching Monday Night Raw and tomorrow SmackDown. As a fan, now I watch as a fan because I'm not doing it anymore, but I'll just watch and kind of just go along for the ride. But the other part of me, the guy that was a wrestler, I'm very picky. And so, like, what some people are really going crazy for didn't really make the grade for me. So you as a comedian, you're in the back, or someone says, hey, man, you know who Tony Woods is? Or like someone will come along, like, is everybody making you laugh? Or are you thinking to yourself, you're scratching your head, I don't know how this motherfucker's going to make it because he ain't funny.
Yeah, there are guys, what's crazy? It's not that they're not funny because they're making people laugh. It's just, it's not my kind of humor.
Right.
And there are guys that I worked with, and there's a guy I'm picturing in my head. I can't think of what his name is. He's always doing stuff with Conan O'Brien as they're both pale and white. Jim Gaffigan, Jim Gaffigan and I used to share a lot of stage time in New York. And I would watch him and I just go, all right. I mean, I'm more of I like dirty comics, and Jim's funny. I just never got into him. And then there's some guys I'll never forget. I always like to ask promoters who bring me into town, hey, who's doing real well for you right now? I like to just ask what's going on, what's selling a lot of tickets for you. It helps me learn where everything is trending. And I remember a promoter saying, I just did who was really good a couple weeks ago? I had Kevin Hart in a half arena in Houston, and I went, Kevin Hart? And he went, yeah. And I go, I know who that guy is. Never watched his stand-up. I just remember we used to always go to the same clubs in New York. And I go, Kevin Hart, the little black dude? And he said, yeah. And I go, in a half arena? And he goes, yeah, well, he's doing a lot of movies now. And I went, wow. And then a year later, the same promoter said, I had Kevin Hart do 2 nights in an arena. And then a couple years later, Kevin has tickets go on sale at a football stadium in Philadelphia. And I went, all right, I'm going to watch that show. So I contacted a buddy of mine at the Eagles and said, hey, is it cool if I come to see this comedy show that you guys are hosting at your stadium? And I watched Kevin Hart for the first time in front of, and no one's ever done this before, 65,000 1,000 people went to a comedy show in a football stadium, and I got it. I understood it. He was really likable, relatable, family stuff, relationship stuff, and I was like, wow, I get it. And I had a really funny moment driving back to New York, which is only an hour and a half up, and relating to all the other comedians, like, man, you guys aren't going to believe this. I just saw Kevin Hart in front of 65,000 people who paid to see him tonight at a football stadium in Philadelphia. And everyone went, wait, where's this? And I go, it's where the Eagles play, man. He sold out the stadium where the Eagles play. And one of the comedians at that table is a guy named Gary Goldman. And Gary goes, wait a minute, hold on, wait. Isn't Kevin from Philly? And I go, yeah. And he goes, all right, so he's got family. And I go, he doesn't have 65,000 family. He's not a Mormon. You know, I mean, he's like, come on, dude. But listening to comedians try to rationalize it was really funny. But Kevin Hart, man, I totally get it. I go, you know, who gets beat up a lot by comedians, or used to at least, was Carrot Top. And I saw Carrot Top, and not only did I laugh, I actually found myself being the lowest common denominator. I was watching his show, and I repeatedly said, that is true. That's so true. I found myself just being the most basic audience member and enjoying it. I know you said you didn't know who Bill Hicks was, but there's an amazing story out there that just came out recently that Bill did jokes about Carrot Top. There's some special that just came out recently that Bill was considered the gold standard of comedy by comedians. I guess, you know, a lot of people refer to him as like a comics comic. Apparently, when he was sick with pancreatic cancer, and Carrot Top told the story. He said he was doing a show somewhere, and he got off stage. He was in Florida, and someone said, hey, Bill's here. He wants to talk to you. And he was like, he is? And he said, I walked into a room, and I didn't even know. But as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, my God, Bill's sick. And he said, Bill just said, hey, I just want you to know, I made some jokes about you, but I wanted to make sure you understand that I think you're a really funny guy, and I love you, and I didn't want you to misunderstand what I said. So I wanted you to know that. And he completely understood what was going on. He's sick, and he wants to make sure, you know, listen, before I go, I want you to hear it from me.
Right.
It was a really heavy story. And again, my ADD is kicking in here. And your question was, is there anybody you look at you don't think is funny? But I'm just going to reiterate my point, which is that there's nobody that I don't think is worthy. Because if you're selling tickets, I know that you're worthy. It might not be my thing, but I'm just grateful that I get to watch guys who I love over and over again for free. I can't believe I'm doing what I'm doing. Like I can't believe that I'm making money. I'm sending money home to my mom, and I'm surrounded by the funniest comedians in the world every night.
With respect to your stuff, where do you draw the line as far as how far out there you'll go as far as trying to be funny?
I used to do...
Dude, it's 2018. Everything is so PC these days. And I asked Bill Burr the same question. And it's funny because, you know, talking to Bill Burr, after we did the podcast, he was on in Manhattan Beach right down the road, and my wife and I went down there.
Oh, wow.
And Jesus Christ, I mean, you know, when you're hanging around Bill, just like you, real laid back, and he's not the same Bill Burr on stage.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know, everybody always expects you to be on, or always expects you to do impressions or whatever. So I talked to Bill for an hour and a half on the podcast, and all of a sudden, man, we show up at Manhattan Beach Comedy Club, whatever it's called, and I laughed my F in the head. I thought my head was going to explode. Dude, he was on fire. Yeah. And so, and he'll push the envelope, you know, a little bit out there. And he told me, he goes, Steve, if the audience bought a ticket, they're buying in. They know, you know, that I'm going to go out there a little bit, but that's what they're coming for. Yeah. And so I said, yeah, okay, I can understand that.
Yeah. I don't push that hard. If I do, it's really subtle. It'll be, I don't even want to say exactly. I like to make sweeping statements about stuff and kind of leave it for the audience to figure out. I remember George telling me it's always good to be likable, and then just hit them right in the nuts, and then just keep going and being likable. You don't have to. And I thought that was a really good philosophy. And I used to do stuff on stage that was really cheap in my mind. that.
What do you mean by cheap? Because I was listening to one of your interviews, and you wanted to keep the impressions out because you didn't want them to come across as hacky.
Yeah.
So
well, that's one of it. There were comedians who I learned early on. There'd be guys doing impressions on stage, and I would notice comedians going, "Oh man, this guy's doing these pumpkin impressions," and I'd go, Is that bad? Is that? Yeah. And they go, well, it's just a cheap laugh, and so I was like, oh, well, then I'm not going to do it. And I didn't do impressions for I think a couple years until a comedy club owner heard me doing impressions and went, when the hell did you learn how to do that? And I said, I've always been able to do it. I grew up and we haven't covered it very much, but I grew up in a deaf family where I couldn't learn how to talk from my family. I learned how to talk by copying all the voices I heard on TV. And he said, well, why don't you do it on stage? And I said, because comedians think it's hacky. And he goes, well, if you do it in a hacky way, if you just say, hey, here's Adam Sandler, and you repeat an Adam Sandler movie line, like, you can do it, then that's sure. But
that was Rob Schneider.
Yeah, it was Rob. That's right.
You can do it.
My one Adam Sandler that I just got recently was I saw Adam at a club the night before I flew out to tape something with Shaquille O'Neal, and then I see Shaquille, and I go, oh man, it's so funny, man. I've been excited to work with you today, and I knew that you and I are going to get along really great. And but last night I was at a comedy club, and Adam Sandler showed up, and Adam did a joke about you, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to work with that guy. And Shaquille O'Neal said, what's the joke? And I go, it's not my joke. And he said, what's the joke? And I go, well, according to Adam, I guess you guys worked on a movie together. I didn't know that Adam Sandler gave Shaquille O'Neal a part in the movie Grown Ups 2.
Yeah, I was in that movie.
You were in the movie? Oh, that's right. That's right. And then he said that there was a moment during a break in filming where Shaquille O'Neal said, I'm going to go take a shower because they're going to take a break for a couple hours. I'm going to go take a shower. And Adam Sandler says, and when he said that, I said, oh, man, this is my chance. I'm finally going to get to see Shaquille O'Neal's dick. And it's not gay. It's not gay. I want to tell my kids, hey, your dad saw something amazing once, and that's it, And then he tells his whole story about how he sneaks into the shower, and he tries to get a peek, and then Shaquille O'Neal's bodyguard pops out, and he's even bigger than Shaquille O'Neal. He's a big guy, bald dude, looking at him like, and he goes, oh, man, he runs back out to the set. Now he's embarrassed. I got to tell Shaquille O'Neal now. Shaq comes out, and he says, hey, I know that he probably heard I was trying to look at you, and I just want to apologize. Your bodyguard busted me. And he said, I don't have a bodyguard. And I said, yeah, the big bald guy. And he goes, no, that was my dick. And that was the joke. Yeah. But there are guys that say doing, impressions is hacky. And so I would stay away from it until I figured out a way to do it creatively. And where I'm at right now is just talking about how I grew up. And that is the perfect way to do it, because that is my story. I grew up in a deaf family. I couldn't learn how to talk. I learned how to talk by copying all the voices I heard on TV. I never got an accent from the Bronx, which is where I'm from. Everyone in the Bronx sounds like Tracy Morgan. Everybody in the Bronx talk like this, whether you black or white, male or female. That's crazy. Hey, this is the voice of your next door neighbor, and I'm a Vietnamese girl. That's crazy. So it was the weirder the voice, the easier it is for me to do it. So like Christopher Walken has a real stop and go kind of voice where he'll talk. Every once in a while, he'll stop, and then he'll keep going, or Adam Sandler or Al Pacino, whatever. It's like, if it's an unusual voice, it's easier for me to get. And from the moment that I walked in here, I was like, God, why have I not even attempted to do your voice? Your voice would be really easy to do because it's so distinctive, which is why I think you need to get a jump on doing voiceovers before someone is doing an impression of you, because that the way the business works is we're looking for a Steve Austin type voice. That's the way it works when you could be doing it yourself, There's nothing more laid back than doing voiceover. When I've gone out for acting auditions, I always feel uncomfortable because everybody in the room tends to be a lot more handsome than I am. They're like good looking, like Hollywood guys. And I feel like I need to kind of sit up straight and kind of suck in my gut a little more. But when I go in for voiceover auditions, nobody has showered. Nobody shaves. Guys are wearing T-shirts to say the moose is loose. They're just like, it's such a laid-back gig, and it's good money.
All right, let's take a quick pause for the calls and get big ups to TrueCar. These days, news travels lightning fast. which is great if you're a sports fan. Between status updates and breaking news notifications, you can always be up to the minute on every team and every game. Now, while this is great for sports, it's the opposite when it comes to buying a car. Go online and you are bombarded with numbers, invoice, list price, dealer price, all kinds of prices. It's hard to know how to recognize a good price. Not anymore. Introducing True Price from TrueCar. It's the only price you need to know because it's exactly what you'll pay for the car you want, including fees and accessories. How do you know if your True Price is a great price? Because True Price shows you what other people paid for the same car you want, so you know how to recognize a good price. And your certified dealers know this, so they set their True Price competitively so they can win your business. So when you are ready to buy a new or used car, visit TrueCar to enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features not available in all states. You're also going to need car insurance for that new vehicle. Go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, listen to the Steve Austin Show. Pay attention. I want to keep this podcast free to download with minimal ads, and to do so, I would appreciate your participation in a PodcastOne survey. The responses will help make sure that the right advertisers are matched up with you folks, the audience. The survey is short and will take no more than 5 minutes of your day. Either go to podcastone.com/mysurvey or visit PodcastOne. That's podcastone.com and click on the survey banner. This survey will go a long way in making the Steve Austin Show even better. And that's the bottom line, because I said so. One more thing. Thank you. All right, before we get to the rest of the interview with Craig Gass, here's a fact for you. Did you know that 66% of men start to lose their hair by the time they're at 35? Well, that really chaps my ass, and it should bother you as well. Well, give the big double bird to baldness, because Hims is here to save your damn hair. Hims is a wellness brand for the modern man, a one-stop shop for hair loss, skin care, and sexual wellness, making men's personal care trusted, easy, and affordable. Hims offers FDA-approved medical-grade products, personalized recommendations, plus convenient, confidential online consultation with a licensed doctor. Ain't no pharmacy lines, ain't no waiting room. The products are shipped directly to your door, and Hims passes big savings along to you, offering prescription and generic for just a fraction of the price. Sound treatment and prevention backed by medicine and science. Look better, feel better, do better with Hims. For listeners of the Steve Austin Show, get a trial month of everything you need to keep your hair for just $5 while supplies last. Now, this would cost you hundreds of dollars if you went to a doctor's office or pharmacy, so what are you waiting for? Save some damn money and save your damn hair. Hurry up. Just go to forhims.com/unleashed for all the details. That's forhims.com/unleashed, and stomp a mud hole in the hair loss and walk it dry. One more time. That's forhims.com/unleashed to get yourself a trial month for just $5.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
You like dirty humor?
I do.
Blue stuff.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, if I can just say, I think it's more unfiltered.
Unfiltered.
Yeah. I think there's something about honesty that makes me go, wow. Like I like that a little more than
But just as far as
cautious
language, what was it about Richard Pryor, he's one of my idols, that guy turned cussing into an art form.
Yeah.
Like when he cussed, it wasn't offensive. Yeah. And you just rolled. I mean, the F-bombs, the motherfuckers, I mean, everything just rolled off his tongue. It was so eloquent and articulate, but the way he put it together, because you can hear somebody, whether it's male or female, and they can cuss, and it can be, your basic, 4-letter cuss words, but they'll sound offensive as hell.
Yeah.
You put Richard Pryor out there, it was so relaxed. He could say anything. It was like, man, that guy's just so funny, and he doesn't seem foul-mouthed at all to me because he took it to an art form.
Because he talked about himself, and he was very honest and transparent in his own flaws. And part of it was just the language. There was something familiar and honest about it. And but yeah, even if he would do, like, if someone tried to do like a Chinese voice today, and he had that great thing about seeing the funniest thing he'd ever seen was a Chinese stutterer, and that he was at a Chinese restaurant. He's trying to order some food, and the guy talking to him goes, ching, cha. And he said there was another guy who worked in the restaurant who was getting pissed, going, and he's trying to help him along. And just his description of it was so honest and so funny. He was just so candid. Man, I mean, it's crazy what's coming out about Richard now that his wife is revealing the diaries that he has, that he left behind. But
what's coming out?
He was honest about, because he grew up in a whorehouse. If anybody doesn't know, he grew up in Peoria, Illinois. His grandmother raised him, and his grandmother ran a brothel in Peoria. So he had this bizarre childhood of seeing, men coming to his home to be with, members of his family and women that he, was growing up around, and which is just a bizarre perspective. There's just a tremendous amount of honesty that's been revealed about these diaries that are coming out, and there was something about it that was just, he could really diffuse that tension that exists amongst us in society. I remember telling that to George when I first started to get to know George. I remember telling him that my favorite parts of those comedy specials as a kid that always blew me away, those George Carlin and Richard Pryor specials of the 70s and 80s, is the crowd shots, man. They would show these, you'd see the audience, and you'd see these, there was definitely a timestamp on some of those specials where, you'd see like a white guy that, with feathered hair and a real dated looking suit next to a black dude with a big afro, and they're looking at each other going, oh my God, and they're laughing their asses off. And these guys didn't come to the show together, but stand-up comedy, this relatable human experience that we all experience, is bringing all these people together. And I just felt like, man, everybody's letting their guard down, and we're all on the same page going, man, this is so true, that we are flawed in that way. And there's just an opportunity there to be able to say something. You could elevate people's consciousness because we're all in agreement. I just feel like comedy is I never thought I would ever do it, but it speaks to people in a way that nothing else does. Music is what I wanted to be a part of, but I have no talent and I had no, ability to play an instrument. But stand-up comedy, and I hear this from musicians all the time, musicians who stand in front of 70,000 people on stage still think that the idea of standing without any instruments with a microphone is the scariest thing in the world.
Right.
And I get that, but it is so empowering, and there's nothing like, even when an audience is not responding well, there's nothing more thrilling than knowing I can handle this.
Dude, you got a Seahawks shirt on. Are you a big football fan?
I'm a huge Seahawks fan. I've been a Seahawks fan for over 25 years. Are you a Cowboys fan? Oilers? I'm trying to think of growing up in Houston.
I always tell everybody I'm kind of all over the NFL. If there's a system that I like, I was really pulling for Doug Peterson and the Eagles this past year in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I'm a big Belichick fan. I'm a huge Brady fan.
I love Belichick.
But, as much as I love those guys, I really like that body of work that Carson Wentz put in on his second year.
Wow.
Blew out the ACL trying to make that touchdown. Nick Foles comes in. They stumble a little bit at it, but they keep it going.
Yeah.
And then they're going to the Super Bowl. It's just the whole showdown thing. So I really was pulling for Philly this year. Back when Katrina hit New Orleans, man, I was really pulling for New Orleans that year.
Of course.
Sean Payton.
Dude, you're hitting all the spots that I went to the NFC Championship in New Orleans. I booked a show in Baton Rouge so I could see the game. But I was pulling for Brett Favre because I had just turned 40. Brett Favre had just turned 40. And I was like, if this guy can pull this off, he's showing me that I'm still going to be cool at the age of 40. And I was bummed out that New Orleans won the NFC Championship, went on to the Super Bowl. But as I was leaving out of Louis Armstrong Airport, I saw there, and I don't know if they still have those pictures at the airport, but there was just framed photos everywhere of the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, of just pain, just suffering. And as I left that airport, it just dawned on me that there was something much more important going on in New Orleans than Brett Favre advancing to the Super Bowl. This meant something so much deeper to the people of New Orleans, and I found myself rooting for them pretty easily. But I don't know if you see. I feel like as an athlete, I feel like you might not be able to relate to this, but I can be around the most famous comedians and the most famous musicians. I'm used to being around, and I'm okay with that. I can get excited, but I'm okay with it. But there's something about being around somebody who I yell at through my TV screen that makes me a little excited in person. Do you feel that way around your favorite football players or no?
Man, I never get a chance to hang around them or see them.
You're kidding me.
No, dude, I'm a homebody. I don't get out a whole lot.
You don't get invited? You don't have people? I mean, I'm guessing that you must have, to your surprise, found out that there are a lot of athletes out there that are big fans of yours. That has happened.
Well, yeah, that has happened, and it turns out that when I had Lane Johnson on the show from Philadelphia Eagles, tackle, he was on the show, and of course Jason Kelsey, Chris Long.
Oh yeah, Chris Long, sure.
Big wrestling fans, and they were bringing up what references, give me a hell yeah references, and kind of and down that Stone Cold vein.
Yeah.
So I know that those guys, and a lot of guys. I know Kevin Love of the Cavs is a fan. There's a lot of guys out there watch the business. So. But I don't really hang around with anybody, and if someone's ever passing through LA, then that's cool. Maybe if they come by or whatever. But
who intimidates you? Like, who have you met that you went, oh my God, I can't believe this guy knows who I am?
Nobody really. I mean, back in the day, yeah. But as we're sitting here now, man, I've been hitting with so many steel chairs, I can't remember everybody I've met.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I'll never forget one time this is a long time ago. When I used to go to the MTV Music Awards or whatever Billboard Music Awards, I can't remember. It was so long ago. But, man, when I was stone cold, I was there in my blue jeans, my black boots, and my leather vest. I didn't have a T-shirt on underneath it. Dude, I came as Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm standing there in line, and, dude, I'm a loner. I'm like Lone Wolf McQuaid. And so I'm standing there in the line. It's a red carpet, whatever it is. And out of nowhere, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry of Aerosmith come up behind me.
No shit.
Tapped me on the shoulder, said, hey, man. And they introduced themselves to me. And they said, we just want to know, man, we love you. We're just huge fans. And I was like, dude, beyond humbled. They're one of the greatest bands, Aerosmith.
Of course.
If you don't get Aerosmith, there's something wrong with you.
Of course.
So the fact that they would come up through the line, tap me on the shoulder, and stick out their hands that blew me away. That was pretty damn cool.
Did you find yourself in that moment trying to think of what to say and getting too caught up in, oh my God, it's Steven Tyler?
No, just because it was such a quick moment, and it lasted for 30, 40 seconds, and they went on about their business. But it was just cool. Well, like if Steve Tyler came by today, it'd be like, sure, that's probably where we'd start the conversation.
All right. Well, I was hoping to get you on the same page as me, but I can't. So this is just going to be me out on a limb telling you what a jackass I made of myself. I am such a huge fan of the Seahawks and the Seattle Mariners that I book all my shows around the United States around Seahawks and Mariners road games. I just came back from Houston because the Mariners were playing in Houston last week. And I also was hoping that the Rockets were going to be in the NBA Finals because I really love Chris Paul and James Harden. And I thought they had a great run this year. But years ago, I met my quarterback at the time, Matt Hasselbeck, and I freaked out. There's no other way, there's no sugarcoating this. I saw him in the hallway, and I went, Matt! And Matt turned around, and he goes, what's up? And I said, what's up? My voice got that high, and then I realized, oh my God, I have a camera phone. Hey, excuse me. And I grabbed an usher. Just real quick? Come on, Matt, can we, just real quick, man, can we do this? And I take the picture. If you look at the picture on my Facebook page, I look like I'm 12 years old. I'm shaking in the picture. Plus, Matt Hasselbeck is a foot taller than me. So I'm squeezing him and looking up at him going, he takes the picture and goes, all right, man, I'll see you later. And he just walks away. And I see him walking away like, what? There is something about meeting somebody who you really admire, where you want to stretch out a moment that is clearly over. I asked him for a photo. He said, fine, but now he's moving on with his life. But I want more out of this. So as he's walking away, I went, Matt! And he turned around, and I just put my hand out, and I said, come on, man. Just give me. Because I thought, if we shake hands, then we'll start talking. If we start talking, I don't know, maybe you'll teaching me how to throw a spiral. I don't know where that was the next step was going to be, but I just know that shaking hands is the beginning of a friendship. And Matt Hasselbeck reluctantly turned around and went, all right, what's up, dude? And he starts walking towards me. And in my head, I was going, oh, my God, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. And then I went in to shake his hand. And these are the only words that came out of my mouth. I went, you make me so happy. And he went, what? And I walked away. I don't even know what that meant. But I said, you make me so happy. I didn't say that to a member of One Direction. I said that to my favorite quarterback. And the sad thing is, I fucking meant that because, and if you're not a Seahawks fan, just hear me out on this level. The way that my team plays on Sunday, genuinely, as ridiculous as it sounds, it affects my mood for the next 7 days, man. It genuinely affects me. So he was the first guy to take my team to the Super Bowl, and I just love that dude. I just could count on him when he was on my team. So my mouth opened up, and the most pure thing that I could think of was, "You make me so happy, man." And I spent the next 10 years trying to analyze that on sports stations all over the world. Every city that I go to, there will be media appearances that I'll do, and I always try to do some sports stuff. And the feedback that I would always get is like, well, we love King of Queens and we love, Family Guy and the other shows you've been on, but we're a sports station. Do you have any sports stories? And I have to go, well, I met my favorite quarterback and I started retaining water for some reason. I don't know what happened, but and they go, all right, well, come in and tell the story. And so I've been repeating that story 10 years. Every city, like every week I'm in a different city repeating this embarrassing moment with Matt Hasselbeck. Then 4 years ago, I'm broadcasting from the Super Bowl Media Center in New Orleans. When Matt Hasselbeck starts walking through the Super Bowl Media Center, my friend Jason stopped me. He could see the look on my face. He said, hey, man, just calm down. And I go, no, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to say hello. Hey, Matt. Hey, I didn't want to bother you at all. I just want to say hello. I'm a big fan. And Matt went, Craig Gass. And I went, shut the hell up. Are you serious? And he went, you're the guy. You're the guy with the story. Hold on a second. Brett, come here. I look over. Brett Favre starts walking towards me in slow motion. And Matt Hasselbeck goes, Brett, this is Craig Gass. This is one of the funniest comedians on the planet. Now Brett Favre seems to be floating towards me. And he goes, what's up, dude? I love stand-up comedy. And I went, I do too. And I started crying. I actually started sobbing to Matt Hasselbeck and Brett. At one point, Matt Hasselbeck said, this guy does impressions. What? So I was, Craig, do some impressions for Brett. And every impression I did was of somebody fucking crying. Every impression was, can I get a picture, man? Okay, Jason, take. The next day, I wake up in my hotel room in New Orleans. I log on to my Twitter page. Matt Hasselbeck is following me on Twitter. I remember jumping up and going, I remember calling friends of mine back home in New York, and I said, I made it, bitch. I was so excited. And then I called, my friend Jason was in the next room. I said, Jason, get in here. Come here. And he goes, what? And I go, look at this. And he goes, what? What am I looking at? Twitter. So what? Matt Hasselbeck. What? Is Matt Hasselbeck following him? I said, Matt Hasselbeck is following me on Twitter. And he said, you should tweet him. And I went, oh, yes, I'll tweet. I'll post the picture. I'll post the picture from last night. And that is when this whole story just takes a huge shit, because I was so emotional looking at that picture. And by the way, so you can see it for yourself, whoever's listening to this, go to my Facebook page, because it's on my Facebook page. My Facebook's connected to my Twitter, so I would post everything on my Facebook page and go to my Twitter page. Go to facebook.com/ILoveGas with 2 S's. Go to my profile pictures, and you'll see it. Matt Hasselbeck, smiling. Brett Favre on the other side of me, smiling. Me in the middle. And this is the caption I wrote. I made the mistake of writing a caption while I was in a emotional state. I said, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. But when one of your heroes introduces you to Brett Favre with the words, this is one of the funniest comedians on the planet, you know what time it is. Hashtag, it's boner time. And within an hour, Literally within 1 hour, Matt Hasselbeck unfollowed me. And I went, oh, what? Was that too much? So, yeah. So the moral of the story is this. Yes, dreams do come true. I've seen it. Just don't screw them up, man. Don't push. And I pushed too hard. And Matt's still nice to me to this day. I actually saw him at Super Bowl 48. I saw Rudy Giuliani in the Super Bowl Media Center for Super Bowl 48, which was in New York. And I was home for September 11th. So I wanted to grab Mr. Giuliani and just say, Mr. Giuliani, my name's Craig Gass. I'm a stand-up comedian. I just wanted to tell you that I was home on September 11th, and those next few weeks, every time I heard you speak, you made me feel like everything was going to be okay. And I cannot tell you enough. I know you've heard this a lot, but I just wanted to tell you personally how much it meant to me that you made me feel like everything was going to be all right. And he said, oh, thank you. What is your name? And I said, it's Craig. And he goes, well, I'm going to look you up. And I said, it's Craig Gass. And he said, all right, well, I'm going to look you up, Craig. Thanks for saying hello. And I shook his hand. And then I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I turned around, and it was Matt Hasselbeck, and he said, see, you can be normal. And I said, I'm not yelling at my TV every Sunday at Rudy Giuliani, go throw it, you got it, like, I'm not. It's a completely different connection, man. When you're watching a football game, you brought up the Minnesota Vikings, that ending to that game was one of the most exciting finishes I've ever seen, where they, at home, that last home game they played, and who was that against? It was, because I know the next game they went to Philly and they got crushed. Oh, was it New Orleans?
Yeah, it was New Orleans.
I think it was New Orleans. New Orleans and Minnesota. And they were playing in Minnesota, and that magical catch was, I mean, when football is going right, it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing.
But you've been to, like baseball games or football games, like you just said, before the game. And
Yeah.
man, dude, I think I was in the Philadelphia Phillies locker room one time meeting the guys. Shit, I can't remember who it was. But anyway, the pitcher that was pitching that night, I can't remember his name. But, dude, I went over and met that guy. And, like, everybody's glad to see, hey, Stone Cold Steve Austin here. Everybody's, hey, it's cool. Yeah. No, dude, not the starting pitcher. Dude, he's already in the zone. So, like when you caught Hasselbeck the first time, I'm like, that's a pretty, those guys get pretty lasered in.
Yeah.
And so, like, meeting them after the game is a little bit different, and if they win after the game, it's a little bit different than meeting them before the game, and they've got business to take care of. They do the meet and greets, all the bullshit. But, dude, when it comes game time, they've got that brain spinning and focused.
That's funny that you say that, because that's an intuition you have because of your own personal experience when you go in and you know you're about to go on. That people who don't do that aren't conscious of that. Before a show, if I'm going to see a band or a comedian that I'm friends with, if I say hello to them before the show, I constantly say, "Do you want me to leave? You want like?" And then if they say, "Yeah, let me get ready." All right, cool. Hey, man, have a great show. I'll talk to you afterwards. But if they say, "Nah, man, just hang out," I'm like, all right, if you want me to, like, I was in Canada 2 weeks ago, hoping to see the Winnipeg Jets in the playoffs. I will go to Canada every year in the months of April and May, hoping to watch hockey when I get there. And Slayer and Anthrax were performing a show. And before Anthrax went on, those guys are huge Kiss fans, so they love hearing Kiss stories. I was telling them my most recent run-ins where I've annoyed Gene Simmons. And it was a good one. I saw Gene Simmons at his show and walked up to him. It was a big festival. And he said, so why are you here? He walked up to me, and I usually will stay away unless, like, there's been shows where I see him, he's dressed up, he's getting ready to go on stage, and I'll just give him a thumbs up, like, have fun, and unless he says, come over, I don't want to talk to him. But there was one night where he waved me over, and a couple guys in the road crew said, Craig, Gene's looking at you, he wants you to come over there. And I turn around, Gene's standing next to a couple people, he goes, come here. And I went, oh, what's going on? He said, these are my friends. I want you to go, make some jokes. Go ahead. Come on. And I went, oh, all right. What's going on, guys? My name is Craig Gadd. I don't know if he told you I'm a stand-up comedian. He goes, no, do the impressions. Come on, get to the impressions. And I go, oh, all right. Who do you guys like? Do you like Christopher Walken? You like Al Pacino? And I start doing impressions for them. And then one of those guys says, he goes, man, how'd you learn how to do that? Is that, do you just, like, you look in the mirror and you work on it? And I go, nah, it's kind of a weird story. My whole family is deaf, believe it or not. And they said, is that true? Gene leans in and says, it's true. his family's deaf and he's dumb. And I went, all right, let's take it easy, dude. So, but I remember relating these stories to the guys in Anthrax, and they're about to go on stage. And I said, you guys want me to just, and they go, no, man, keep telling us some stories. All right, cool. But I'm always respectful of people's space because I will find myself sometimes about to go on stage. And it's shocking to me how sometimes it could be another comedian. I'll be pacing, and the other comedian will go, hey, man, you ever, and I'll go, yeah. And I'll even try to drop a little bit of a hint, like, yeah, I'm just thinking about what I'm going to do tonight. So, yeah, man, I'll tell you what, last night we had a show, and it's like, all right, listen, I'm trying, and I don't know how to say it. And me personally, I can only go as far as hints. I don't have it in me to go, dude, will you shut the fuck up? I'm trying to get ready. Like, I don't have that in me to say that to people. So I just hope that you read those hints. And I look for the hints myself.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm talking to people, I read body language like, hey, man, you want me to leave you alone? You want me to? But even if I see people in public, it's just a quick, hello, how are you? You know, hope you're doing well. And I just don't want to bother you, you know? But that is a very intuitive thing before a game to want to give somebody space, especially a pitcher, man. You can't get in the way of a pitcher before a game, man. That is like,
no, man. Hey, on Twitter, Instagram,
yep,
website.
At Craig Gass Comedy with 2 S's. But all the links to all the social media is at GetGass. It's getgas.com. GetGass with 2 S's.com.
Dude, let me know when you come back out to L.A.
I would love to. In fact, I'm doing a big show at the Comedy Store here in Hollywood that I'd love to have you come out to. I think you get a kick out of it. September, I think it's the first or second Sunday in September. And there's actually going to be a couple guys dropping in that night that I think, I always like to throw in a surprise that I don't announce. I had Whitney Cummings come up and do a surprise thing. The last one I did was Jeff Ross. And this one I got a huge one, a guy who has been helping me with my SNL audition I've been going through. I started auditioning for SNL, and a former cast member of SNL has been helping me with my audition, and I'm going to have him drop into that show. Yeah, if you're home, please come out to that show.
Well, give me a yell.
I will, man.
Hey, man, thanks for stopping by the crib.
Thank you, Steve. I feel like I'm going to do a bunch of push-ups and sit-ups tonight now just to, try to compete. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's never a dull week in the world of professional wrestling, so to keep up on all of it, be sure to subscribe to the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast here at PodcastOne. I produce 2 new shows each week. Every Thursday on our flagship show, I'm joined by a co-host from the wrestling journalism field to talk about the hot topics in WWE and elsewhere. Every Friday, I'm joined by a guest who has worked in the wrestling business, including ex-WWE creative team members like Kevin Eck talking about Drew McIntyre.
Drew was a young guy, and did it go to his head, and did he walk around like he was the chosen one? He did, and I was frank with him, and I said, Drew, just so you know, this is how they view you.
And PodcastOne's own Christian Harloff, talking about his days working for WWE and Vince McMahon specifically.
As far as their perception of him, I mean, he's the king. He walks in, and it's just, you can feel it. I mean, if the Force was real, you would feel the Force powering into the room when he enters.
Just search Wade Keller on Apple Podcasts or on the PodcastOne app or anywhere else you listen to podcasts.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. Before I do that, I want to thank Craig Gass for coming by the crib today and shooting the breeze. Check out his website to see where he'll be. He's a funny-ass dude and does some good impersonations. Chavo Guerrero is coming up next week, and he's probably going to be on the Tuesday show unless I get a chance to watch Money in the Bank, and we break that down for the Tuesday show, and then we'll start Chavo on Thursday. It'll be a 2-part episode with him, and it's a great conversation I think you'll really like to hear. But I'll play it by ear as far as where I place it, depending on if I get a chance to see the pay-per-view from WWE on the WWE Network. Remember, they're giving away 2 free months, so check out, if you've never signed on to the WWE Network, check it out, sign up, check out 2 badass pay-per-views on June 17th and the one in July. But anyway, before we go home, ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin has all my Broken Skull Ranch shirts, and we're about to start kicking out some Nevada designs. We're just trying to get some artists in line and get jumping on that. And if you're thirsty, with summer coming right around the corner, the best damn IPA on the planet is Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. And you can find it in California at Whole Foods and Total Wines. If you ain't in Cali, try InsideTheSeller.com and see if they ship to your state. And if you're looking for a badass pocket knife like the one I got in my pocket, check out the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife or the new Working Man knife. And you can get them at my new Amazon store. Amazon has the best price on both knives. Just go to Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin or go to the Cold Steel Knives website. And I want to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially DDP Yoga, Buffalo Wild Wings, TrueCar, Geico, and Hims. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. You can find all my sponsors at PodcastOne.com under the Killer Deals button at the top of the page. And folks, I am on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Steve Austin BSR. Until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.